Hello students, today we will have a class on international trade and policies. Under this, today we will have a discussion on World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization is an intergovernmental organization that is concerned with the regulation of international trade between the nations. It was officially commenced on 1st of January 1995 under the Marrakesh Agreement, which was signed by 123 nations on 15th April 1994. It replaced the earlier agreement, that is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, we call it as GATT, which was commenced after the World War II. So it is the largest. Today we can find this is one of the largest economic organization in the world, an international economic organization in the world, which is having the highest number of member countries participating in this, and India is one of the founder member of this organization. This World Trade Organization deals with, let us understand, what does it deals? It deals with regulations of trade in goods and services and intellectual property rights among those member nations which participate in economic activities. So World Trade Organization provides a framework of rules and regulations about how to regulate the trade between the countries, on what are the commodities to be traded and services, and intellectual property rights on the commodities. So it enforces the participants to adhere to the World Trade Organization rules and regulations. So all those member countries who have signed this World Trade Organization, member of this World Trade Organization, they have to abide to the rules and regulations which have been provided and to the amendments which have been implemented to this. So the member countries have to take care of those policies which have been amended regularly, and this World Trade Organization is a platform which provides the member nations to have transaction with all those member countries. So the trade is, it prohibits, this World Trade Organization prohibits the discrimination between the trading partners. There should not exist any discrimination among the trading partners, and they should always have a trade on mutual benefits. And it provides certain exceptional cases that the world, whenever there's a trade happens between two countries, so they have to take care of this environmental protection, national security, and other important goals which the country would like to prefer. So those things has to be taken on top priority. So here, any trade related disputes which arises, it will be resolved by the World Trade Organization. It has its own court of law with independent judges who will take care of this, resoluting this, any disputes among the countries. The World Trade Organization, the main objective is to boost the trade and to remove all trade barriers which may exist between the trade activities. The World Trade Organization is highly influenced. It has a text of trade agreements written on documents, so which will always stand alone with the trade activities. So we call it the preferential trade agreements, which are explicitly refers to the World Trade Organization guidelines, which are the agreements which has a lot of laws and regulations which has to be abided by the member countries. As the same PTS, we find that substantial portion of this treaties language, sometimes the majority of the chapters are copied from the verbatim from a World Trade Organizations. So it is very relevant to the World Trade Organization agreements. So this World Trade Organization will provide a platform removing all trade barriers and non-discrimination among the member countries to have a ease trade between the countries. So it regulates and monitors the trade activities and sees that the trade should happen in a smooth manner. So let us understand what is preferential trading agreement. The preferential trading agreement is an agreement which will try to reduce the import tariffs on the member countries of all those identified commodities, the country which is exporting and the country which is importing. So relating to that, they insist to reduce the import tariffs and allow the exporting country to export goods and commodities to your country. So that's called preferential trade agreement. So next is free trade area. What is free trade area? A free trade area is a space created among the member countries where the member countries can have trade without having any barriers, by removing all tariffs or non-tariff barriers among themselves. But they are free to maintain their own tariff with the non-member countries. So if these countries are having a trade with a country which is a non-member of this World Trade Organization, then that country is free to maintain its own tariffs on imports of commodities. So this free trade area is free to those member nations to have trade within them. Any non-member country, if they want to trade with these countries, then these countries are independent to impose taxes relatively to with those countries. Next is other type is customs union. What is this customs union? The customs union is also a form of a group of association where it eliminates trade barriers among the member countries, and there will be a common external trade policies adopted for non-member countries. In customs union, all those member countries are free to have trade within the member countries. Apart from this, all those member countries will try to impose a uniform tariffs on other non-member countries. All countries are going to maintain the same form of tariff to all those non-member countries which they are going to trade with these countries. It means that all those member countries, so they will have a tariff of a similar form. Any non-member country would like to trade with any member countries of this World Trade Organization, those countries will have a common uniform tariff with the non-member country. So now let us understand what is multilateral trade. A multilateral trade means it's a trade which is between two or more countries. The term multilateral trade negotiation means it applies between general agreement on tariff and trade. All those member nations which were conducting trade under GATT, and they used to have a multilateral trade between the countries, and the main aim of this was to reduce the tariffs or non-tariff barriers among the member countries. In 1995, the World Trade Organization replaced the GATT as an administrative body. So what is regional trade? A regional trade is a trade agreement between two or more regions, neighboring countries, which are located at a nearest locations. So it is among a region like European region, African countries, or Asian countries, like it forms a region. A trade which is going to happen within that region is called regional trade. Say for example, European Union having a trade with Singapore, EU Singapore trade agreements for goods and services, Chile and Indonesia having a trade for export and import of goods, Hong Kong with Australia and China for exchange of goods and services. It's called a regional trade. A trade happening between regions, two or more regions. So what is bilateral trade? A bilateral trade is a trade agreement between two countries in relation to their goods and services. So now let us try to understand what is customs union. A customs union is an agreement between two or more neighboring countries to remove the trade barriers, to reduce or to abolish the customs duty, that is the export and import duties between the member countries, and to eliminate quotas. Quotas means it is a amount of quantity which has to be exported or the quantity which has to be imported. That quota is also to be removed. So such unions were defined by GATT and are also called as third stage of economic integration. So customs union means it's an agreement between two or more countries to eliminate the trade barriers and to reduce or to abolish completely the customs duties and quotas, to have a free trade between the member countries. So in customs union, unlike other free trade agreements, there will be a common external tariff. Common external tariff in the sense all those member countries will have a similar type of external tariff, means a tariff which is imposed on import of goods from a non-member country who is not the member of this union. When this country is outside this union trade, if they want to have trade with these member countries, they have to make a single payment. That is, they have to abide these tariffs. They have to pay these tariffs, the duty fee, for the goods that have crossed the border once inside the union, so that can trade freely with no added tariffs. So they have to pay the one-time duty. Imagine a European Union, EU countries, European Union countries. So imagine if so those countries are all those France, Italy, Germany, all European countries. They formed an association called European Union. So now imagine a South Asian country would like to trade with EU countries, Then if they are going to trade with the France, so they have to pay a tax or single payment tax, means one customs duty for getting material to the European country. Once they pay this tax, so now they are free to trade with any other countries. They can distribute the same commodities to any parts of these European countries without paying any taxes. That's called a common tariff, which once paid, which is applicable for all other countries. Only once it has to be paid. So now let us understand the advantages of customs union. So the customs, there are a lot of advantages. So we can list out few. So it increases the trade flow and economic integration. It increases the trade between the member countries, and it will also helps to improve the allocation of scarce resources that satisfy the wants and needs of the consumer, and it also boosts the foreign direct investment. There will be trade creation and trade diversions due to this. So let us understand what is trade creation. Trade creation means it is a creation of trade activities among the efficient member of the union. So among those member countries, a country which has efficient, which has abundant resources, it tries to sell those commodities with another less efficient member country. So this creates a better trade creation. A trade is created among these two countries, and there is a better allocation of resource. It's called trade creation. Trade diversion. Trade diversion means here the trade may get diverted to another non-member country. Imagine a country needs rice. So there is another member country who is ready to sell rice to this country. But now there is another non-member country who is ready to sell this rice to a member country at very lesser price than to another member country. So here what happens? A member country would not be able to cope up with the price. So here a country will go with have a trade with a non-member country. Since the prices are low when compared to its own member country, it tries to buy from him. Here, if we want to buy from a non-member country, so there is a common tariff which will be levied on those goods. After levying this common tariff on importing from a non-member country, still it founds to be cheaper, then the goods are allowed to enter into this union. So here it's an opportunity for an less efficient member countries to capitalize, to sell more goods within the nation. So there is a trade diversion can be eliminated. So how it can be eliminated? The tariff can be increased. When the tariffs are increased, in non-member countries, commodities will become costlier than to a member country. So by this we can avoid a trade diversion, a trade happening with a non-member country. So this will give an opportunity for a less efficient member country who is already a member of this union, whose goods and commodities will found to be cheaper when compared to a non-member country. Hence, the trade diversion can be avoided. So it reduces trade deflections. Means a duplication of a trade. So if a member country is trying to have a trade with a particular commodity, and a non-member country cannot have a trade with a member country unless until his goods are found to be competitive. But still, here in a customs union, in order to avoid the trade of a non-member country, the tariff can be increased. The tariff seems to be at higher side. For this reason, a non-member country may not be able to have a trade with the member countries. So this will reduce the trade deflections. The customs union is a little favored when compared to the free trade. In free trade, any country can trade with any another country based on the price factor and availability of commodities, resources. So here in a customs union, it's a controlled trade, and it always favors to a member nations. It gives priority to the member nations to have trade between the countries. So there is always a favorable to the member nations in customs union. So when we talk about a non-member country whose goods are at a lower price, but still this country, if they want to sell, they have to pay the tariff. So here what happens, that since the tariffs are high with the member nations of this custom union, then its prices, its commodities will become costlier. So because of this, so there will be trade distortions. So this is the customs union will help us to avoid all these type of problems, avoiding arising to tariff differentials. So in the customs union, they will have a common tariffs which is imposed on a non-member nation. So whenever any non-member nation would like to have a trade with the customs union, so they have to pay these tariffs. And since these tariffs will be always high, a non-member country could not be able to afford to have a trade with a member with a customs union, since there is another country which is exist, may be a low preferenced country, but still due to the high tariffs the country may not be able to sell these goods at a very favorable price. So hence this customs union stands favored to the member nations. So now let us look into the disadvantages of customs union. So there is a loss of economic sovereignty. So whenever a member of a customs union required to negotiate with a non-member countries and organization such as WTO, so these countries are not free to negotiate and they are not able to protect an infant industry in its own market due to liberal trade policies and due to common external tariff. So distribution of tariff revenues. The tariff revenue which is collected by this customs union has to be equally distributed among the member nations. But it won't happen in reality. Few countries, few influenced countries would like to have more proportion of this tariff revenue will retain by themselves and would not be distributed fairly among all member countries. So there is a distortion in distribution of tariff revenues. The another disadvantage is complexity of setting the tariff rate. So it's very complex and time consuming in setting the tariffs with a non-member country. So thank you.